Ooh-wee. Sometimes I amaze myself. Good whiskey make Jap Rabbit slap of the bear. That was Jamaican. Welcome to Hey Guys Podcast. I'm Rob, that's Liam, and this week we watched Hard Target, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme and directed by John Woo in his first American directorial debut. We follow Chance Boudreau, who for a mere $200 is whisked into a world of hunting humans for sport. Now, the hunting human genre isn't new, and I'm sure we will see many more as the years roll on. But Hard Target shows us what can happen in a genre if you mix the premise with a pair of tight jeans, long legs, and a Hong Kong action. But only a little Hong Kong action, mind you. The producers didn't want to scare the audience away. Although shackled, monitored, and then removed from the editing room by Van Damme himself, the John Woo-ness is all over this film, but no more clearly than in the second half, and definitely the final battle. You want an actor throwing a gun to our hero? You got it. Wielding guns? No problem. Taking a break in gunfire to have a chat back to back with an object between us? Of course. Oh, and birds. Can't forget the birds. Now, yes, this is a Van Damme film, and it's clear to see, and I really enjoy this film. But I wonder what would have happened if we had more on-screen time between Lance Henriksen and Arnold Vosloo. Best chemistry in the film is between these two. And of course, I would want more Wilford Brimley as Uncle Clarence Duvet. Before we had Channing Tatum's uncomprehendable Cajun accent, spoilers, we had Uncle Duvet. I have no clue what this man said in any of his screen time, but boy, did I want more. Now, Liam, I was shocked to hear that you haven't seen this film. I honestly thought this would have been up your alley, but now you've watched it. I'm curious, and keep it to 5 minutes, mind. What are your
Ooh.
thoughts?
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, halfway through this film, I was legitimately asking the question: Can a movie be poorly acted, directed, and written, and still be fun? The answer is apparently so. I mean, I think I did maybe the ultimate 180 on this movie. Like, make no mistake, there's some fun bits in the first half, but for a lot of the first, I don't know, 45
Hour,
minutes of this
dude.
film,
Pretty much an hour.
it's derivative, it's hackneyed, it's poorly written dialogue everywhere, questionable acting, by the numbers plotting. And the second half, it's like a wonderfully absurdist slice of action cinema of just the highest order. Once common sense is abandoned, and it truly is about an hour in, the movie becomes something I would dare say genuinely special. Like I said, I was watching this, I don't get it. What is all the fuss about? Like, don't get me wrong, I love the look. When they showed Van Damme, and he somehow looks great despite the gap. When they show up, he's got the hair, they show you the earring, he's got the duster, the jeans. I'm like,
Double denim.
Double
He's
denim.
got a
I don't
denim
know.
shirt, yeah.
But yeah, somehow, I mean, this is 1993 is arguably peak Van Damme, and somehow he's pulling this look off and just looks fantastic. But like I said, for like 45 minutes, I was like, it was so poorly written, and some of the direction was like Days of Our Lives stuff. I was like, this is just bad. I was trying to decide like where it was going to fit on the kind of Van Damme pantheon. I was like, well, it's definitely second tier. I was like, it's miles off Bloodsport, Kickboxer. But then I was like, it's not in the same league as Universal Soldier or Time Cop. I was like, oh, maybe AWOL, or like at one point I was even thinking, does this go like fit alongside Cyborg or something like that? But then all of a sudden, he decides to punch a snake. I audibly react to that. And then the rest of the film is fucking lights out. And it's because, like you said at the top, it suddenly becomes a John Woo movie.
And I think I can answer that with, and I'm going to jump straight into facts. I'm going to answer that with the first two facts on my list, right? So Universal was afraid that John Woo's limited English would be a problem on set, so they hired Sam Raimi to oversee the entire shoot and replace Woo if need be. So Woo's kind of shackled at this point anyway. And then the second one was John Woo's original cut of the film ran nearly 2 hours and focused more on Fouchon, Lance Henriksen's character. Van Damme and his editor locked themselves in an editing room for 2 days and re-edited the film for the producers. Van Damme stated that moviegoers were paying to see a Van Damme movie, not a Lance Henriksen movie.
It's a shame because this movie, don't get me wrong, I want to see Van Damme in this. I think Van Damme is good in this.
Yeah.
But the whole Emil Lance Henriksen and Peak, or is it Pick? Sorry, Pick, Arnold Vosloo with his fantastically evil South African accent. They are the money in this film. Like you said, that's where the chemistry is. Because make no mistake, he's got no chemistry whatsoever with Yancy Butler as Natasha. Now, I don't know if she's a terrible actress or if this film is just that poorly written. But I was like 20 minutes in, I was like, man, she fucking stinks in this movie.
Yancy Butler. I've never known Yancy Butler to like be that damsel in distress character. Don't get me wrong, I haven't seen her in loads. So to see her in that damsel in distress role just doesn't work. It immediately doesn't work. And the filmmakers knew that as well, because there was a sex scene between her and Chance, and they were like, "Yeah, this isn't going to work. Let's cut it out." I mean, I would have much rather the sex scene between Pick and Emil. To be fair, their chemistry was fantastic.
And it's not just that. They're kind of like, when you go back to 80s cinema, I know this is an early 90s film, and you think that like a lot of them are those kind of like two-handers where you get like the big bad guy, and then you get his kind of like the muscle. I'm thinking of like Mr. Joshua, and is it the general or whoever it was in Lethal Weapon? Stuff like that, and the colonel. And then there was the same thing with Commando and stuff like this. This is like legitimately one of the best examples, because not only is Arnold Vosloo amazing as Pick, but Lance Henriksen is out of his fucking mind in this film in the best possible way. And again, the more they're in it, the better it gets. Like those bits, it almost feels like, especially in the first half of the film, it feels like those sections are directed by a different person and they're going for a completely different tone. And I think that's what you're talking about there in terms of there's almost like two versions of this movie.
Yeah,
there's
they've
like
kind of re-edited.
A really fun bad guy movie, and then the other version is the Van Damme movie that he wanted, where he's the more traditional hero.
Yeah, so the editing was removed a lot of the time between Pick and Emil, and you get more Van Damme.
Shame.
Yeah,
and
it
the
really
other thing
is.
it does, watching this for the first time, again, cannot believe I've never seen this film before. To the point where I asked my brother, I was like, have you seen this film? He's like, I watched this film loads when we were younger. And he's like, you obviously saw it. I was like, I haven't seen it. He would not believe me. And I was like, dude, when I watched this a couple of days ago, I can assure you, if I'd seen it, I would have remembered this fucking absolutely insane movie. I'd just never seen it. So going in and I'm watching the intro, I have no idea what's going on. And to my mind, I just think they're like really incompetent because they don't actually explain the fact that it's a hunt until later in the film. So when I'm seeing them chase this guy who is like the fucking cow from Me, Myself, and Irene, just will not die. Just, we shoot him like 17 arrows, we blow him up, we set his ass on fire. They don't even manage to kill him in the end. It's bad carpentry. He just falls through the fucking deck and basically gets himself killed that way. But all the way they're talking is like, if he gets to the water, it's like game over. So they're like, to my mind, they're really trying hard to kill him. I'm like, these guys are rubbish. They've got rocket launchers. This guy's on foot. He's in an open field. I just don't get it. Obviously, retrospectively, I'm like, because some moron was paying to hunt him. And they're like, we're almost giving him a hand at the end of the film. But earlier in the film, I just thought these guys were all dumbasses. And as the film goes on, I was like, well, fucking Lance Henriksen's a total badass with this single hand shotgun thing, whatever the hell that is.
Thing is amazing as well.
At the start, I thought they were all morons.
I read about it and I wish I would have taken a name. I just passed through it quickly. But you can change the barrel on that thing to take different cartridges. So obviously he's got it for fucking elephants at the moment, because that fucking cartridge is massive. But you can change the barrel on it. I loved Lance Henriksen as well. The only move he kept doing, and I think he loved doing it, was grabbing somebody by their coat and pushing them in front of him. He must have done that about 6 or 7 times. Just move.
Well, you can see in a few occasions, obviously John Woo has stepped in and he's trying to get him to do something stylish. Because right from the off, this is relatively stylish. Although I'd argue that stylishness does disappear for like a good 30 minutes. And I suspect those are the bits where maybe Sam Raimi's come in, which is weird because Sam Raimi's a really stylish director. But it becomes a much more traditional Jean-Claude Van Damme action movie, and especially in 1993, because, we all think of like Kickboxer and Bloodsport and stuff like that. By 1993, he's trying to become like legitimately like A-tier star. Like this is around the time of Universal Soldier. It's the year before Time Cop. This, like I said, this is Jean-Claude Van Damme arguably as most famous. So he's probably thinking, this film needs to make a lot of money. This can't be one of his idiosyncratic late 80s movies. This has to be one of his big blockbuster, make shitloads of money. So obviously at some point, they've panicked with the whole John Woo thing. And it's a shame. But you can see those elements of John Woo's directorial style, his fight choreography. But some guys, and Lance Henriksen being an obvious example, just doesn't have it in the locker. The bit when, I think it's Poe, he has him in his office, and he kind of just puts his foot on his chest in a really awkward way and keeps pushing him with his foot. I'm just like, that looks like, it just looks uncomfortable for everyone involved. It doesn't even look like it would hurt. It looks like it would hurt Hans, what I can keep calling that, Lance Henriksen, more than it would hurt Poe. So, I just don't think he had the, I don't know, flexibility, should we say, to kind of deliver on those moments. But a bit of a shame, but it just kind of adds to the general oddity or oddness of this movie, as it were.
So before we talk about things that actually happened in the movie, like we usually do you know what this movie has given it, the legacy of this movie for me?
What's that?
I wave my hand in front of a peephole anytime somebody knocks my door before I look through it.
Well, maybe for the best. But
just in case somebody in Cardiff has a fucking silenced pistol.
I don't think you waving your hand in front is going to do the trick. I think you're still going to stick your eye there a second later and get shot. But I get it.
You got to create the shadow, haven't you? Because that's what he's looking for. He's looking for the shadow. So as soon as you create that shadow.
Oh, so you're like, you lean over to the side, wave at them, just in case Pick is there to shoot you in the eye. Just in case seems unlikely. But then my wife is occasionally concerned that a shark's going to attack her in a swimming pool. So, everybody has these things,
Going back to one of the first things, right? And I can't believe I'm going to actually start with this one. Randall Poe, which what a greasy little man. But
he has a tough time. He has a tough time in this movie.
How did he sleep like that? Like he was out for the count on his back. Like, wouldn't the visceral fat or something just choked him?
I don't like. The thing is, he's clearly just not aware of his surroundings. There's a bit later on when he's getting a massage. And basically the woman steps away and then Jean-Claude Van Damme starts massaging his neck and he just doesn't notice. Now, I don't know if you've ever had a massage by a dude. I have once in Turkey. It's just part of the tradition thing. The women massage the women, because you go to one of the rooms and they put all the bubbles and stuff on you. It's cool, go with the culture and stuff. But having a dude put his hands on you, it's a very different experience because I've had my wife give me a massage and stuff in the past, but I was all of a sudden, as he's putting his hands on me, I'm like, I don't think I've ever had a dude put his hands on my back like this before. And it's intense and it's weird. Not in like a weird sexual way. It's just like, wow, this is different. Yeah. There is no way he doesn't notice fucking Jean-Claude Van Damme's giant man mitt suddenly around his neck. But he's like, oh, she's pretty good at this.
2 hands to 1 hand. And also, I've never I've had a couple of massages because I deal with sciatic pain, but I've never had anyone start on my neck and use a towel on my neck. Like she did not want to touch that dude at all.
It was one of those kind of like, I don't think she was getting into the muscles. I don't think she, had any kind of qualifications. I think she's just there. Oh, she's quite pretty. And they just do like a basic massage. I've had one of those. Like for our honeymoon, we went to the Maldives. And as part of the package, you get like a combined massage where you both go into the room. Yeah. And the cool thing is you lay on the bed and the bottom is below you. It's all glass, so you can see the fish and stuff below, which is cool. The problem is, of course, if I get onto a massage table, what do I have to do first? I have to take off my glasses. So there's supposedly fish below me, but I can't see shit. But these 2 women come in, they give you both massages. It's very tokenistic. They're hardly working the shoulders or anything like that. And again, that's my kind of point in comparison. If Jean-Claude Van Damme had suddenly walked into that room when I'm just looking at, like, trying to look at fish but can't see shit, he suddenly came in and put his hand on my neck, I'm thinking I'd notice. But Poe is a dumbass, isn't he? That's his whole shtick.
What do they owe him in that massage parlor? Because she just let him go straight into the room. Hey, Chance, you here for? Oh no, I'm here on bit. Hey,
Chance
you go.
does what he wants. Chance does what he wants. Later on,
he walks into crime scenes. That's fine. He invests.
So, what I was just going to say, apparently there is only one detective in the whole of New Orleans.
Technically 2, isn't it?
So there's Detective Marie Mitchell, who he calls her death by sight. By the way, just looks over, she's dead. I'm like, how the fuck do you know she's dead? Why would you believe him? But for all intents and purposes, it feels like New Orleans, certainly in this movie, is being sold as like the worst place on earth. I mean, people are just getting shot in broad daylight and nobody gives a fuck. And they have one detective.
The emptiest place on earth. Like at the beginning of the film, when they're running around and he's running through the streets, there's nobody there. And it's like, and Sam Raimi's behind the camera at some point because obviously Ted Raimi is there. Like, look, dude, I got no cash on me, or no change. But I know you never wish this on actors or characters or anything, but she deserved to die, Detective Marie Mitchell, just for putting a lit fucking candle in her
Oh, I
in
don't.
her
Well, it was
filing cabinet.
such a weird sequence. Like I thought they were setting her up as a character because I was like the whole thing about her having like a birthday cake was like, oh well, she's so into a job that she doesn't have the rest of her life is like non-existent because she's just a detective. And again, apparently one of maybe two detectives in the whole of New Orleans to the point where, to get back to your initial point, they just let Chance show up at fucking crime scenes. And he's just I'm just like, why is he behind the line? Why is he able to tamper with these fucking dead bodies? He does it later on where he goes to the crime scene and literally, I mean, it's an absolute mess. It's been burned to the ground, whatever. He literally just goes over, looks at the rubble, just stuns at one tiny bit, immediately finds the dude's fucking dog tags. Like, clearly Jean-Claude was like, I'm not going in there. I'm not getting my hands dirty. It's like, well, would you mind just thumbing at this bit and then you can find them? It's like, okay, I'll do that. It's absolutely ludicrous.
So, I mean, I had that down as well. That was ridiculous. The other thing I wrote down, I've never noticed before. I'm wondering if it's like she is the only, like there was one more detective that told her they found her dad's dead body. Whether he's on the take or not, I don't know. But it was him. But when what's her name? Yancy Butler as Nat Binder. Mm-hmm. Why would they call you after a bug? What a stupid line. But when she goes to report the missing person, mm-hmm. there's a strike outside. So I might be thinking too much more into this than the writer and the directors did. But is that why Emile and Pick have chosen New Orleans? Because there's a police strike. So there's no police presence.
It could, but it sounds like they're more settled in, and the way they talked about it later.
But then they've been there for a year, yeah.
And the whole thing about them going to Eastern Europe, it just sounds like they go to like fucked up cities or fucked up places in the world where they're just like, there's so much crime, we're just going to be able to get away with this. And it's like, oh, for there to be like missing bodies, especially apparently homeless people, it's not a big deal. But when, like, for instance, when what's his name? The homeless dude.
Well, Roper,
yeah. Like when he gets shot in the street, like they stretch credibility. I can't get the word out. They stretch common sense and believability to its very edges. Like he's walking around the street after they've just started chasing him, and he doesn't even look that homeless, and he's begging people for help, and nobody helps him at all. That's bad. But then Pick rolls up in his car, shoots the shit out of him in the middle of what is apparently the busiest street in fucking New Orleans. And it looks like two other people get hit at the same time. And just everybody's just like, yeah, sure. Well, that's just what happens in New Orleans. It's so strange.
If you're running for your life...
Credulity. Sorry, that was what I was going for.
If you're running for your life to get 10 grand, because obviously you're homeless, 10 grand, would 9 grand be a sweeter? Right? Go with me on this. So there's a people about to shoot you. There's a load of people around who won't help you. Mm-hmm. But you're wearing a money belt. If you chuck $1 grand in the air to cause confusion, couldn't you get away?
And the thing is,
9 grand is still as sweet as nothing.
He seems to, for the most part, he seems to handle himself pretty well. He's obviously been in the army before. You think he'd just be a little bit smarter? But again, just like the way they sell New Orleans as just the worst place on earth. And I mean, in fairness to them, they really do lean into the whole New Orleans. Like this is a New Orleans film. It looks like it's filmed largely on location. Yeah. They lean into the vibe. A big part of it is it appears to be simply so they can say, oh, well, he lived with someone who spoke French, which kind of half explains his accent, even though it doesn't sound anything like Duvet, who we will get to shortly. But I was like, there's a pretty long history of great New Orleans movies. And by the end of this film, I was literally thinking, is this one of the best ones? Then I started looking up. I was like, well, Streetcar Named Desire, The Big Easy, and Bad Lieutenant all set in fucking New Orleans. It's not as good as those. But it does, I think it's up there with like the oddities, because I think of like Cat People was one we covered on this podcast. I still can't believe we did Cat People on this podcast. That's another New Orleans film. Angel Heart's another one. I think it belongs in that category of decent oddities set in New Orleans. And it's a weird city, and it seems to kind of encourage weird movies. Yeah. Was Blade set in New Orleans as well? Am I making that up?
You're making that up. Yeah, you're making that up.
Maybe it was filmed in New Orleans.
It was an undetermined city basically New York. But
I think it was partly filmed in New Orleans. I think that's what I'm getting mixed up.
Yeah, so in answer to your question, this was filmed like in Louisiana and a bit in Mobile, Alabama, but mainly in Louisiana and definitely in like the French Quarter, Baton Rouge, White Castle,
They certainly had it
Vacherie,
down.
Louisiana.
They were filming in the region, if nothing else.
Yeah. Going to you mentioned about the homeless people as well. They hunt homeless people, and for the fact that they've been going on for years, they said they've done it in so many places. You know, they can go for years in Eastern Europe. But their business model
they're like a really shit version of the League of Shadows, basically.
But their business model seems a bit flawed. They're relying on homeless people to say they do or do not have family. Now, if you've been homeless for a while, I would assume you're gonna say, well, I've got no one to care for me, so I got no family. I don't got family, sorry. And if they're flashing cash, you know, they're going to say, well, I've got nobody to care for me. Because he didn't actually say, Roper didn't say, I haven't got any family. He said, no, I got nobody who's going to look for me. That doesn't mean he doesn't have family. He just thinks nobody's going to go looking for him.
It doesn't feel like they've done like their full kind of due diligence there. But like what I like to think of with this film is that it's almost like it could be kind of prequel to like Running Man. You know, like you see Running Man, the TV show, and it's very similar to this in terms of theme. The difference being is simply just budget and the allowance. You know, if we get to a dystopian future, I like the idea that they started with this, and then eventually, you know, all these things have to start somewhere, and then eventually they go legit in Eastern Europe, get a TV show because things are pretty ropey over there. Then America goes to shit. They rename it as the Running Man. They move over to the States. They go, yeah, but you just can't go killing homeless people. Like, well, how about we bring in like ex-convicts? Like, dude, that sounds fucking awesome. We love killing ex-convicts. Next thing you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger's on the show. I'm not saying there's a direct link between Hard Target and The Running Man, but I like to think there might be. You know, it's not inconceivable, put it that way. And like I said, I was genuinely shocked about halfway. I had that aha moment. And like, maybe I need to watch it again, and maybe it is obvious. But it felt like it was a bit into the movie when, oh, now I get it. They're hunting people. Now the start makes sense. Now the whole premise is much, much more interesting. Whereas for a while, it just felt like it was cruising along. And I didn't know really why I should care. It all felt very straightforward. Oh, he's been killed. I'd almost forgotten, you know, the kind of drama surrounding it. I was like, okay, everyone's got bow and arrows, which is weird. But then I'm also, well, it's a John Woo movie. You know, his movies have weird action shit. I thought maybe
they don't have bow and arrows. They have rifles that shoot crossbow bolts, but it's not a crossbow. It was clearly a rifle. It was the weirdest weapon I've ever seen. It's a weird
gun. And I actually thought that intro sequence, I was like, this doesn't feel very John Woo. And now that you've said it, I'm like, what do those sequences where he shoots the arrow? What does it feel exactly like? A fucking Sam Raimi movie. Yeah. I'd be amazed if he didn't direct those sequences. Like, it opens in first person. It has all these weird stylistic things, but not in a John Woo way. As I said, when I was watching the film, up until it was, let's be clear, it was the shootout where Pick tries to kill, where he kills the detective, and Chance starts rolling around on the car. He's rolling around on that car for fucking days, it feels like. But I'm like, oh, suddenly this feels like a John Woo movie. And then from like 2 minutes later, he's standing on a bike in one of the dumbest. It's an amazing stunt. It's dumb as fuck. Like, why you would make himself bigger and a much larger target, much easier to hit. It is pointless, but it's that John Woo thing. And basically from there, it really becomes a John Woo movie. And
it amps up the John Woo-ness, as I said
it was almost like they gave up. It was like, well, we've got no more plot left. All we've got is action. We're just going to have a John Woo movie in the second half. So it's almost like they were trying to bury the lead in the first half and be like, oh, no, this is a Western action movie. And then they looked at the second half and it's like, dude, all we've got are front flips through fire, people on fire. Every time somebody fucking sneezes, someone explodes. There's nothing we can do about this. We're just going to have to put up John Woo stuff.
And that's why I thought that they're trying to ramp up the tension and the drama at the beginning for the payoff. But yeah, I'm not saying it's good, but for the payoff for the end. When you mentioned that, then when he makes himself a bigger target because he surfs on a bike, I had to laugh.
That's a sentence.
I had to laugh at that. Because when they go around the corner up to, it's like the speed runway where the bridge is.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. The car is right behind them, like right behind them. But then when he's able to turn his bike around, get her off, level it perfectly, stand up on it. The car is just coming around the corner. It's like they stopped to go, no, no, give him some time because I feel like Van Damme's going to do something good here. Just brake, just brake, just brake. Just give him some time. We're going to see something great.
Yeah.
Like
there's a few moments of that throughout the film. Like later on, there's a bit with a dude on a bike and he has like a face-off, no pun intended, with Van Damme. He goes to shoot Van Damme. Van Damme somehow knows that he doesn't have any bullets left and then starts running at him. He does the same with Lance Henriksen later in the film. Lance Henriksen has the opportunity to kill him, but he seems to like run at him really slowly, but everyone just kind of stops. And it's like, again, it's that John Woo thing of like, okay, this doesn't make sense, but what will it be? It'll look fucking cool as shit.
Yeah.
And it does. So we just allow it. Does it make sense? Absolutely not. But as we've already made clear, this movie is so much better when it stops trying to make sense. Like Uncle Duvet, like him showing up like 3/4 of the way into this film makes no sense whatsoever. What is he saying? As you already mentioned, we don't know. Do we give a fuck? Absolutely not. Why does he bring Natasha to the fucking warehouse to just ostensibly for the only reason
he
is to
doesn't,
get
does he?
her in danger?
But he doesn't. He gets it away and he says, if you go 2 miles that way, you can phone the police. And then she goes back to Chance. He goes, oh, child, I really wish you'd go phone the sheriff. Like, and then he follows her.
Yeah, of course.
So,
my mistake. My
yeah.
mistake. So she's just an idiot.
Yeah, she absolutely. The other thing about the John Woo of it all, every shotgun seems to be loaded with incendiary rounds. Because no matter what the shotgun shells hit, they explode. Now, I will jump straight at the end here for a little bit. When
everything explodes.
Everything
from the
they
moment
shoot.
he gets on that bike, whether it be a shotgun, whether it be a pen, anything, everything explodes. I was literally just like, this is like a video game. Everything's explosive and everything explodes. It's amazing.
I do love how we weaponize the snake. Like that was quite good. Like the whole thing when he was like, "Do you trust me?" and then she closes her eyes. And I absolutely loved the timing of when she opens her eyes and the music comes on to know that there's danger. And then he kind of just gives the snake a little tap and then punches it, knocks it out, and
See,
like,
you
weaponizes
so
the snake.
said that. He punches a snake. And again, I thought they were going to go at that point. And there was a brief hint of it. I thought it was going to go like Home Alone / Rambo 5, and he was going to put up like booby traps everywhere. Because up until this point, Jean-Claude Van Damme is clearly a bit of a badass, gets into fights and stuff like that. And, you know, his look is so strong that they reveal him twice. I'm not sure if you noticed that. There's the bit in the bar when you get the first reveal and you get the camera and it literally goes, check out the mullet, check out the earring, check out the coat. This guy's legit. And then about 10 minutes later, when Nat comes, like he decides that he's going to go with Nat.
There's the reveal where they move the crane.
And they're revealing him for the second time. And they do like that triple shot thing. I'm like, we've seen him. We've seen him, dude. We know what he looks like. But you don't mind because he looks so fucking awesome. But like when he decides to become, you know, Nancy fucking Drew and starts like investigating himself, he gets his ass whipped by two like local bums, ostensibly. And I was just like, okay, it's relatively, I don't know, grounded, certainly by John Woo standards.
Are they the guys you want to trust for your super secret hunting a person business? Those two guys with the leather jackets and they look like
say that, yeah,
it's
they
like
don't
you've got them off
look
the
the part.
street.
But those two fucked him up. They could have killed him. They battered him. Like they sent him to hospital. Whereas, so, like I said, when he meets up with Uncle Duvet, and all those guys are showing up, I think, oh, they're going to outsmart them. And then that doesn't happen at all. He just becomes a fucking superhero at the end of the film. I'm like, wait a minute, those two guys kicked his ass earlier, but now all of a sudden this same dude can wipe out a whole fucking battalion. Like it basically becomes commander. It's crazy.
Do you know you said as well about they reveal him twice? I loved the in-between of that, where they're talking about getting help. Like the copper says, if you know somebody who knows a city. And then you see Chance, and he stood on a dock, like his thoughtful moment. He stood at the edge of a dock or something, and he's messing with a rope, like he's doing some sort of, like, it made no sense as to why that was in the film. But Van Damme was like, no, this is such a great shot of me. This is fantastic. Yeah, but it makes no sense. No. I look fucking fantastic. My mullet is on full swing. The wind is in my hair. My earring is glistening. Great. Like
The hair is amazing emotion, but this is a movie with a few moments like that. Like this has the kind of classic John Woo, and the second half of this film is the closest we ever got to like full Hong Kong John Woo. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not quite up there with The Killer, Hard Boiled, or Better Tomorrow, but this movie, when it does become a John Woo movie, because I'd argue for like 40 minutes, it's simply not. It's just not a John Woo movie.
I need to interrupt you there. We are now going to call him a John Woovie. You've already done it.
John Woovies. Let's just go with it. A John Woovie.
Yeah.
When this movie is at its best, I think it's like right up there with Face Off. I legitimately do. Like, it's better than Broken Arrow. It's better than Mission Impossible 2. And it's maybe like one rung down from Face Off, simply because Face Off is so insane, because the premise matches the action, and they actually gave him that kind of like, oh, you can do the action, we're going to combine it with an absolutely batshit premise, and Face Off is something quite special. This movie is always a bit too like, the first half doesn't know what it wants to be, the second half is a John movie, but when it does become a John movie, it's like, it is top tier stuff.
And I think the reason for that is because he turned Face Off down for this. And then it just came around then, and he could do Face Off again. Like, everything fell through, and he did Face Off. So he's like, no. What I've learned from doing Hard Target, I will take to Face Off for like the Western audience. So,
and plus, I think that people had a bit more confidence. They knew what they were getting out of him, and they're just like, well, let him have the doves, or let him have the weird face. So again, sorry, no pun intended, but you know what I mean. They literally do the exact.
Well, that's
same
right. Yeah,
shot.
you do the same thing. You've got the same back,
the wall and stuff.
The back to back with the wall shot and stuff. But yeah. I love that with Pick. Boudreaux. Do you not like me? I keep trying to chase you. And he's like, and I can't remember the line they do have, but they've just.
Pick has so many great lines. The thing is, every line he does sounds great because it's South African. And it's just one of those accents which just sounds threatening. So you can say anything.
I want a film with him and Uncle Duvet in a room just talking. Just give me them two, just having a chat.
The only thing is, with South African, you can understand, but it all sounds. I don't think you say anything nice. How's it going, my friend? Good to see you today. It's like I'm trying to be nice. I'm just trying to say nice things to you. You just run in the opposite direction.
You know what you sound
Welsh
like?
Is at the end of the spectrum, where we can say anything threatening, but it all sounds lovely. We can't sound threatening. So that's why every decent bad guy worth his salt is either South African or he's Scottish, and all the nice guys are fucking Welsh and Indian, because we've just got those ridiculous accents.
You sounded so much like Sharto Copley from District 9. Like
that's what I go for. Like, basically, it all comes back to District 9. And you know, like, you have like a keyword which will get you into an accent.
No, because of that film, have you heard me trying to do accents?
It was always brawn. The way you said brawn, if I can say brawn, then suddenly I feel like I'm into the accent. So it always sounds a little bit like Sharto Copley. And it doesn't matter where they're from in South Africa, it'll always sound vaguely Johannesburg, but not good, but at least vaguely in that kind of region.
Right.
But it's just, those accents sound amazing. And it's not just the accent. He's just got a mean face. It's such a great combination. Like, Lance Henriksen, he could play a nice guy. He could play a dorky guy. I don't think he can be anything other than a bad guy, because he's got that face and that accent. And they lean into it. The way, like, the score in this movie is occasionally weird, but when they really lean into, oh, he's a bad guy, like you say, it's, for the most part, the score is strange, but it's not afraid of using kind of audio cues to tell you something bad's happening, like you said earlier with the snake. Punching of the snake.
Yeah.
Or this is a bad guy. They'll just zoom on his like crazy looking South African face, and they'll just have that audio cue just as that additional reminder, oh, this is a bad guy about to do bad shit. And in fairness, one of the worst things anyone does in this movie, because the violence is quite inconsistent again, because towards the end it becomes so outlandish and almost cartoony in a good way that it doesn't feel violent in the same way. But when Pick blows Poe's head off in the car with a shotgun, it's fucking so brutal.
I love, because you got the buckshot then that comes out of the windscreen. Everything. It's absolutely fantastic. He is such a badass. Like, everything about him. He knows that Uncle Duvet's place is about to explode before everyone else. Get the fuck down. And that leads me to a question about Uncle Duvet. You haven't seen your nephew for a while, and I know your nephew grew up with you, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And you know he's bringing trouble to your door. Do you blow your house up with no hesitation?
Well, that's how committed he is. I guess at that point, he knows like everything's going to get fucked up. They're all going to die or something. But I mean, the level of commitment to be like, I haven't seen you for years. You've shown up with trouble. Here's your shotgun. By the way, I'm going to blow up my house just so you have an extra few minutes to get away. Talk about commitment. But that's
his
one of the reasons.
Sorry, can I?
Sorry.
His nonchalantness as well. When Chance goes, "Do you have my 30-06 or the 30-06 I gave you for your birthday?" No, a Gatorade, but I do have your shotgun. Like a Gatorade, just it's a fucking rifle.
I tell you what, when you weren't trying so hard, you almost had that accent then. Because let's be clear, in the intro, you didn't at all. But then you almost fucking had it. So I think it's just a matter of try a little, don't try so hard and you'll get it.
I'll start sounding like fucking Gambit from Deadpool.
Oh, well, we can only hope. That would be such a treat. But that character shouldn't work. But because it's played by the always likable Wilford Brimley, and also because it's Wilford Brimley and you hear the accent coming out of it. Brimley. Sorry, I do apologize. Sorry, it's just the way I've got it written down. Fucking autocorrect on this is terrible. I always think of him as the guy from Cocoon. A film which is, by the way, completely dropped off everything. When I was younger, Cocoon was on all the fucking time with Gutenberg in it and stuff. Like that was that was directed by what's his name from Happy Days? Ron
Howard.
Ron Howard, yeah, I'm sure it was a Ron Howard movie. It was like big budget. I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of those like Spielberg produced movies. I have nothing to back that up. It just feels like it might have been. And it's just disappeared. But when I grew up, like he was that guy. He was the likable old dude, and that's still the picture I have him in my head. And then all of a sudden, he shows up in this film out again. If you haven't seen this film, it's hard to stress just how out of fucking nowhere this guy drops. Like, they're going to see his uncle. But when you see it's him, and then the accent that comes with it, and like I said, this is coming just a few seconds after Jean-Claude Van Damme has punched a snake. So I'm still watching this for the first time. I'm still processing the complete hard left this movie has taken. Because last week we did Cliffhanger. And we said, as good as that film is, and as well as this age, one of the major issues that film has is that it's really front-loaded. Like the best sequences are the first two. It's the drop sequence, and then it's the plane sequence. And then everything after that, it's just never quite as good. This is the complete fucking opposite. And it's not just the quality increases. And I honestly, I missed it in my research, the fact that Sam Raimi directed the first half. It feels like a different movie directed by a different person for the most part, other than the occasional action sequence. But when suddenly, like I said, I'm just dealing with Jean-Claude Van Damme standing on a bike. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a John Woo movie, of course. And then we get Uncle Duvet and the punching the snake and everything that comes with it. And that's all mental, but even that doesn't prepare you for what happens in the warehouse with the fucking floats. Yeah. In what is, I think, perhaps the single most insane action sequence I've ever seen.
I love it.
It's in the conversation for sure.
Yeah, they call it like the Mardi Gras graveyard as well.
Yeah, that's
I love Brimley, Uncle Duvet's entrance though. Because after he punches a snake, then you get the music. You get him just jollily just walking around. He's got a still
going about his business.
He's got a still, like it's not even hidden. He is just making whiskey, just moonshine whiskey. He's loving it. It make you slap at the bear or whatever it said. Like he is absolutely loving it, and then it just all turns to shit.
But like you said, like because maybe they got that actor, they're like, we need to give him something. I don't think any other movie would just give him 5 minutes of him just cutting about being himself. Like usually it would just be Jean-Claude Van Damme showing up at the door and then him doing his things. But instead, we get Uncle Duvet just doing Uncle Duvet shit. It's really strange, but it works for this film.
What did Wilford Brimley give you? Like, not personally, not give you. Like, anytime I think of Wilford Brimley, I think of one thing and one thing only. And I'm wondering if you think of the same thing.
Well, as I said, I always think of Cocoon. I can't help but think of Cocoon.
No.
I think of him.
I think of his, what do they call them in America? PSAs, where they have like drugs will kill you, or do you know those public service announcements? Yeah. He did one for diabetes, but because it's Wilford Brimley, diabetes. Diabetes is going to get you. Have you not seen that?
I have not seen that.
Oh, dude, diabetes.
Maybe that'll replace Cocoon in my... Well, that's the thing, though. I think this will have replaced Cocoon. Like his performance is so memorable and so batshit in this. I think when I think of him now, I will just think of Uncle Duvet. And maybe I'll think of the accent. I'll be like, oh yeah, wait, he doesn't always sound like a fucking lunatic. It was just for this movie. But yeah, as I said, in terms of like slowly building, well, no, it doesn't slowly build at all. It's just it really was a by the numbers action film for 40 minutes. I really was just, I just don't get it. Because you spoke so strongly of it last week, spoke so positively of it. And I was just like, I was a big fan of the mullet. And I thought, oh, like this is a John Woo movie. You get that introduction to Jean-Claude. I'm like, oh, this is going to be fucking ace. Yeah. And then for 30 minutes, it wasn't. It just wasn't very interesting.
I get that.
But then, like you said, it was like all the awesome stuff was just condensed into 40 minutes at the end, which made it like literally when I came in, because I watched this on my own, I came into the room and my wife said, what was the movie like? I think I just talked to her for 10 minutes and she just said, my God, you're glowing. That was like I was pregnant. Like that was the effect this movie had on me. And it's not just by the end of the film, it's very on the nose, but when the credits rolled and it was Born on the Bayou by Creedence Clearwater Revival, I was like, fuck yeah, Creedence Clearwater Revival. I fucking love that song. Of course they're playing that song. I love the fact that Natasha had no closure, that they had no relationship.
No, nothing at all. Fuck yeah, it was. Do you know what I was a little bit disappointed with was the letdown. You get the introduction of the past hunters. Lance Henriksen is still making money at this point. He's like, right, we got one more hunt in New Orleans. It's chance. Let's get the guys in. So we don't know where these guys are, but apparently they've got them in within 2 hours. So they've come from all over America, let's say. They can't be far. And they're like, right, it's going to cost you 250 grand to hunt him or something, but if whoever kills him doesn't have to pay. Something like that. I can't remember what it was. But I loved seeing all of you saw them all. Like Sven Ole Thorsen obviously rocks up. He's got his shirt on and his vest, and then all I could think of then is the other guy who had the crossbow rifle.
Oh, of course, yeah. Awesome number.
You don't get much from them then. You get Sven, who played Stefan, fantastic. He jumps into Uncle Duvet's house, shoots at the ship without even thinking. Comes out then, gets dubbed by somebody else. His only line, the place is clean. That's not Sven, that's somebody else who dubbed him.
Fantastic.
And then he gets shot with an upside-down gun, and Van Damme says, I'm sorry about the shirt. With Sven, is he becoming as well a Hey You Guys All-Star?
He might be. We've covered a lot of movies which he's been in for sure. Do you have the list there? Because there's quite a few.
I did have the list. Bear with me a sec. I can get it back up now. There it is. Yeah, so he starts off Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, covered that.
Yeah, and then so I'll do the ones we've covered, or should I just go through his list?
Let's just go. Yeah, let's see what we're missing as well. Right. If there's anything worthwhile.
Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Conan the Destroyer,
which isn't great. We might do Conan the Destroyer one day, but we're in a great rush.
Red Sonja, Raw Deal.
We haven't done either of those, but I have seen both of those quite a few times in my youth.
Lethal Weapon.
Of course.
Predator.
That was like the second episode.
the Running Man.
Yep.
Overboard.
Ooh, that could be on the list. I used to love Overboard.
Red Heat.
Again, another just a great intro to that movie. I always remember in the steam baths where he has the
just a load of Russian, half-naked Russian men.
Which will link into this movie actually in just a moment once you've done this.
Okay. Twins.
Yep, we've done that recently.
Pink Cadillac, The Hunt for Red October.
Yep, did that recently.
Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Obviously.
A film nobody has ever seen, except for me, apparently. Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man.
I've seen the poster. I am aware of the movie, but no, I've not seen it. It also doesn't surprise me at all that you've seen it.
Lethal Weapon 3. One I want to do because you've done it before. And I'll tell you who he's credited as well. So Nemesis. Remember we talked about Nemesis when we did the Cyborg?
Talked about Nemesis, of course.
Cyborg interrogating old woman. That's what he's credited as.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What a great credit.
Nowhere to Run. That was 93. That was the Van Damme one where Van Damme escapes prison and teams up with Rosanna Arquette or Patricia.
I've never seen that one either. I can see the poster. It's kind of looks quite sandy and stuff, but yeah.
Last Action Hero. Hard
Another
Target.
One. We'll be doing that soon. For sure.
Yeah, Hard Target. Cyborg 2, Glass Shadow.
Nope.
On Deadly Ground, we will be doing that soon with
really?
Van Damme. Yeah, Van Damme and Michael Caine.
The thing is, I don't want to be critical now because when you said Hard Target, I was a little bit Hard Target. If Hard Target was good, I would have watched it. And fucking how wrong was I? So, I'm going to have to take this on the chin now.
Low Down Dirty Shame, The Quick and the Dead. I love The Quick and the Dead.
And
The Russell Crowe, Sharon Stone.
Yeah.
Mall Rats. He was LaFours.
Oh, of course he was. Of course he was. He's basically playing the exact same character that he did in Running Man.
Yeah. Eraser.
That's
Bulletproof. The Damon Wayans, Adam Sandler film.
It's not great. Not great.
No. Call the Conqueror.
No, it's getting worse now.
Yeah, no, they're getting terrible. Best of the best four without warning.
Yeah, okay. I think his glory days are behind.
Oh, hang on. No.
Oh no.
Sorry, The 13th Warrior, End of Days.
That's not. Oh, wait, he's
Gladiator,
bringing it back. He's bringing it back.
Bandits.
But do you know? I actually have a real soft spot for End of Days.
Yeah. Collateral Damage, The Sum of All Fears, Charlie's Angels, Full Throttle, Welcome to the Jungle, Time Cop 2. I mean, he's brought it back a little bit and then he's dropped off again. Back.
Yeah. I always remember Arnold Schwarzenegger giving shit to the devil. You're a fucking choir girl compared to me. I'm just like, yeah, you fucking tell him, Arnie. It's not a great movie, but I just one of those odd ones where I'm like, I know it's not objectively brilliant, but I just like End of Days for some reason. But speaking of Red Heat, where he holds the coal in his hands, at least in that, they make it a big deal. In this movie, and again, you have to remember that for the first half, it's relatively grounded, and Jean-Claude Van Damme gets beaten up by two relative bums. By the end of this movie, he is holding a burning plank of wood in his hand, and it is having no impact. By this point of the film, fire has no impact. Lance Henriksen is on fire for a good 30 seconds, doesn't seem to bother him, annoys him slightly, doesn't bother him. Jean-Claude Van Damme then front flips through flames, mid-air, shoots Lance Henriksen with a shotgun, which sends him flying across the room. He just gets the fuck up. I was like, oh, well, they're clearly going to show he's wearing a bulletproof vest or something like that. Unless I missed it, he just gets up. By the end of this film, everybody is indestructible. Well, those who are indestructible, everyone else is just cannon fodder. Because, like I said, in the build-up with Uncle Duvet, I really thought he was going to pick them off. I was like, well, shotgun's a weird, gun to pick people off, but whatever. Yeah. He really does become a legitimate superhero by the end. He does both a front flip and a back flip through flames. And one of the strangest moments is you have the whole John Woo thing. There's loads of doves. Okay, cool. What lands on Jean-Claude Van Damme's shoulder? A fucking pigeon?
Yeah.
What the hell is that about? Why wasn't it a dove? Why didn't they have a pigeon that he suddenly befriended? I was like, is this supposed to mean something? I don't get it. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter
that
by that point.
You're saying about being a superhero as well. Because Sven, again, he got shot multiple times, but he still stayed upright enough for Van Damme to do a jumping roundhouse kick to take him down. The dude's already dead. Let him fall.
You've got to have it. It's, oh my God, they go so insane at the end. Even the bit when he, in the final showdown with Hans Henriksen, Lance Henriksen. Jesus,
that was amazing. Hans Henriksen.
I've literally said Hans Henriksen about 4 times. That's crazy.
I've missed it.
When he drops the grenade in his trousers, he gets the grenade out of his trousers. He could just, I don't know, throw it anywhere.
Yeah.
Instead, he's like, oh, I'm going to try and, what would you call it?
Remove the fuse. Yeah, remove the fuse.
Yeah. Takes ages, but then actually manages it. And then you have that comedy moment where he pulls a face and he blows up anyway. But I was just like, dude, you've managed to get the grenade out of your trousers. Just throw it the fuck away. Why would you try and defuse it? It's style over substance of the highest order. And it does get away with it because it is super stylistic towards the end of this film, but everything about it is done. Everything.
What's his best line in the film? Hans Henriksen.
Hans Henriksen. Oh, God knows. He has so many.
It's when he looks at that guy. I can't remember where to buy it was. But,
where to buy it was. That was very Welsh, wasn't it?
But I think it was after the house blows up and he's telling everybody to go, go, go. And he looks at this one guy and just goes, "You are a fucking buffalo." I don't even get what.
The thing is, they both have great lines. I think I mentioned before we started the podcast, where I was trying to like second guess what your coat was going to be, and he goes to see Poe, and he's like, "Wakey, wakey, you fat fuck!" It's such a weird. But before he does it, he kind of like half punches him, half slaps him on the stomach.
Yeah,
It's
karate chops his stomach.
Yeah, it is a karate chop, and it just keeps reminding you get these great lines, you get these great moments. And it's like, why would you have cut a second of Emil and Pick out of this movie? Because all the best bits have them in it.
Yeah.
Like, they should have just abandoned all the stuff with it just doesn't work. I know it kind of drives the plot forward, but who gives a fuck about the plot in this film? You just want to see more of them doing their whole hunting homeless people thing and all the shtick that comes with it.
I love the randomness as well, where the new client and the doctor and Pick have to wait around whilst he finishes his solo piano concert.
Oh, so that bit really reminded me of Commando. That really did. Like, everything seems to be white. And, he clearly can't play piano, so they just keep panning to his face and him looking intense. But this movie is awash with this. And we've mentioned it a few times in recent podcasts, Cliffhanger being an example from last week of HD being the movie's enemy.
Yeah.
Jean-Claude Van Damme doesn't appear to be the bravest of actors. For all his flips and kicks and stuff, if there is any scene where he can get a stunt double to do it for him, that's exactly what he's doing. There are a few, like, I get it, shit's exploding, fine. There are some bits where all he's doing is rolling over a car and he's just like, I'm too busy doing lines of coke, get the fucking stuntman to do it. And it's so obvious. And I think it speaks to Jean-Claude Van Damme's beauty that they can't get the mullet right on anyone else. Whenever you see the stuntman, even if you can't see his face, the way his mullet moves, it just doesn't move like Jean-Claude Van Damme's. So you constantly get these clumsy cuts. It kind of gets away with it because the stunts are so ridiculous and it's 1993. What are you going to do? But there are so many instances where you're like, okay, that's a stuntman. That's a stuntman. Where like in one scene, it'll be stuntman Jean-Claude, as he's like, he flips over a car, stuntman, he gets up on the other side, Jean-Claude, almost like a fucking cartoon. But, what can you do? He just wasn't willing to put down the coke.
Before we move on to any next section, you mentioned the two guys that I didn't think belonged in this international conspiracy, but they nearly took out Van Damme. Do you know what they were credited as? Because they didn't give them their names, did they?
I don't think so. They're just the two bums that beat up Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah. So I'm going to assume this is them because they were always together. They're credited as Douglas Rye and Mike Lynott. Douglas Rye played Frick. Mike Lynott played Frack. They were credited as Frick and Frack.
So silly. But again, it comes from the fact that this movie is so split into two parts. Like, for all his Superman, it's almost like watching half of Fast and Furious and then half of Fast and Furious 9. And being like, they're loosely linked, but I can't believe they're the same franchise, let alone the same movie. Like in the opening, when Nat gets hit, you see the mark on her face for quite a while afterwards. Like, again, it's that level of realism. When Jean-Claude Van Damme gets beaten up by frickin' Frack, he's got like a big cut in his eye, and they talk about him going to hospital. It's completely removed from the nonsense at the end of the film. And obviously, it all comes down to the fact that they've clumsily tried to edit this together and turn it into a movie it wasn't. And I'm so glad that they run out of footage in the second half. And what we've got are action sequences, and they were all shot by John Woo. So we've just got to go with it. But what it does create is tonally one of the strangest films I've ever seen. As I said, in terms of it wasn't just, so finally the action showing up. Everything about it feels completely removed from the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
And the first half, I don't even think it particularly works very well. So I was happy that they abandoned all that nonsense, and I was willing to put up with the fact that it doesn't link into the first part of the film at all. But if you watch this movie as a whole, it's a very strange experience. And it certainly was for me watching it for the first time.
It does ramp up, and it does become a much better film when you hit the bayou. And you wonder if we would have just had, pretty much 90 minutes of this film being in the bayou, but then it kind of turns into surviving the game. I don't know if you've ever heard of that or seen
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
With Ice-T, it's pretty much the same thing, where he's being hunted by, I think it's Rutger Hauer and Charles, not Charles Dance. Oh, Jesus Christ, I forgot his name.
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Black actor. Charles.
Yeah, to look it up now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm gonna look up. But and also Gary Busey.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you know it's going to be bonkers then. But that is the thing about it. Like the first half is more like they try and turn it into a detective movie with like a little bit of action.
Yeah.
And then the second half, as you say, it becomes the hunt movie. And like to the point where in the first half, it's almost like they don't want to mention the whole hunt concept because it really doesn't appear in the film until quite a bit of the way in. So it's just like, we don't want to make the intro too strange, but the intro is so odd anyway. It's like when they're like, oh, we ID'd your father's body. And nobody mentions the fact that, oh, how did you ID him? Well, he had like, I don't know, 7 arrows. He was partially blown up. He appears he grazes me on a poorly made pier. Oh, and fire. He was absolutely burnt to crisp as well. It's like he had the weirdest death of all time.
Yeah, but it's
nobody fucking brings that up.
It's because they had the doctor, didn't they? I mean, if you buy the one doctor, the one Morgus.
Well, there's only one doctor. Yeah. There's only one detective.
There's only one couple.
It's
Charles S. Dutton, by the way. And Surviving the Game was a year later. So they watched Hard Target and thought, you know what? We could do this again.
We can do this just without all the nonsense in the first half. And one last thing before we move on, I get very upset by the fact that he keeps referring to her father as her daddy. Unless they are looking for her father who's a pimp, I just don't think you can get away with the whole daddy thing.
Because I've always like your daddy was killed. But then at some point when he first starts going, why are you looking for your papa? Like fucking hell, pick a name and just stick with it.
Daddy, I mean, papa's better than daddy. Daddy just has weird connotations.
Who's your daddy and what does he do?
Yeah, very, very odd. Very, very odd. Should we move on to favorite scene?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I mean, because like I said, I audibly responded to it. It has to be Jean-Claude Van Damme punching a snake, which I thought was fantastic. But honestly, like it could be anything from the last 40 minutes to this film. Uncle Duvet riding a horse and everything exploding. The fight with the abandoned parade floats while everything explodes. The bike stunt while everything explodes. Like this whole second half of this movie is fantastic. And I could pick any one of those. But when I think back to the true turning point, even though there was the scene on the bike and the shootout in the streets, for me, the real turning point was him punching that snake. I was like, wow, what kind of film are we dealing with now? And we were off to the races, so I'm going to go with that.
For me, you've already said it's the introduction, and it's a Van Damme film, obviously, but it's the introduction of Uncle Duvet. As soon as Uncle Duvet rocks up, it ramps up. That pretty much, and you can make an argument for the snake being what ramps it up, but for me, it's when Uncle Duvet, when he gets introduced, it's shit hits the fan, it all moves forward. And it becomes light, as much as there's a lot of death in that scene. It becomes, not that scene, but from then on, it becomes lighter and more fun. And again,
totally, 100%.
more of a John movie. It
really does become a John movie at that point. They try and have this gravitas to the first half, which doesn't really work. And I think again, it's because they don't lean into the premise. That's why John Woo's style, that kind of that flair and choreography that he's got when he shoots action sequences, it lends itself well to batshit premises because it's removed from reality in and of itself, with the doves, with the standing on the bikes and stuff. And that's why Face Off is ultimately a better movie, because the premise is so batshit, and they're just like, we're just going to put these two things together and be like, there's a heightened sense of reality and we're off to the races. Whereas because, again, they didn't quite know what they were getting with John Woo, they didn't double down, and they had that high concept premise with the whole human hunt thing. If they'd gone from it from like the word go, this film could have been something genuinely special. Instead, it's a really weird movie, which eventually becomes amazing, but it's hard not to see it as this kind of weird dog's dinner of a movie, albeit, as I said, a very enjoyable one. Loves?
Yeah.
Sorry. Do you want to
I don't mind. Yeah, if you don't mind. For me, it's
go for it, bud.
Pick and Lance together.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pick and Lance are great together. I think, like I said, their chemistry is the best thing in the film.
I feel like every time we've said their two names, we've done a weird combination of character names and real names. We've been like, it's been like Emil and Arnold, Emil and Pick, Lance and Arnold, Lance and Pick. It's just, we've never quite got it right. Anyway.
No, but them two. I think they're great together. Two. Uncle Duvet, obviously, I've had to bring up Wilford Brimley again. Uncle Duvet is great. And the for all its stupidity, the ending action scene.
Obviously, that
Yes,
whole
amazing.
ending action scene is fantastic, and uh, to the point, yeah, it makes you feel like you're playing. What the hell? And this is going into my video game.
Stranglehold.
Stranglehold.
Yeah, we both got the same answer. We might as well just do the video game section now. We've both picked Stranglehold because it is the
Stranglehold.
correct and only answer for this. We'll
Yeah.
get to it in a minute, but we're just going to repeat what we said here. In terms of my loves, I mean, the hair, I don't think it gets nearly enough credit as being perhaps cinema's greatest mullet. Because when we think of like, especially 80s action mullets, the first one that always jumps out to me is probably Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon. This absolutely smokes that. And I was so happy to see when I went to Jean-Claude Van Damme's IMDb page, the primary picture on IMDb is him from this movie, black and white with that fucking mullet. But like I said, it's the whole look. It's the earring, it's the duster, it's the double denim. I fucking love the look. And he looks great. Like, he was on Friends a year later. And the whole thing where Monica and Rachel are like fighting him. It's like, oh my God, the muscles from Brussels. Like, look how handsome he is. And you watch him in this film, you're like, not many dudes could have that look and pull it off. Jean-Claude Van Damme in 1993 could. Absolutely badass. He looks so great in this film that, as we mentioned earlier, they do his introduction twice. Like, just in case you didn't see the first time, let's show you how awesome he is again. Number two, the action choreography is wonderfully done. And that kind of basically similar to what you're saying. When this movie really goes off the deep end, and it does start arguably with the shootout in the street where he's rolling around on the car and the detective gets shot, and she's like the last bastion of common sense in this movie. And when she dies, and let's be clear, we don't know if she actually died. We're completely relying on chance, looking over at her in a glance, going, "Nah, she's had it." I was like, she was breathing literally a minute ago. I don't know why, but everyone believes chance. He's dealing with crime scenes, whatever. Anything goes at this point. But yeah, it really is that last action sequence when it all comes together. And said, people are getting shot with shotguns. It doesn't matter. People are on fire. They just brush it the fuck off. It's amazing. Number three, and it is Wilford Brimley as Uncle Duvet as well. Like, to show up that late in the movie with that accent, what a treat. And if I was going to sneak in a fourth, it would be exactly what you said, Emil and Pick, who are, like, again, a top tier bad guy combo. If they only had more screen time, I think people would be talking about them in the kind of upper echelons of like bad guys of like late 80s, early 90s cinema. But those are my loves.
Well, before we jump on to hate, I'm sorry because I went onto IMDb, so I was looking at the picture you were on about with Van Damme, and I got to his known for, and I want to play the known for. I need to get a I need to get a theme tune for this section that I bring up every now and then. But
Bloodsport,
it's really going to upset you when you get the four. No, not Bloodsport.
Kickboxer.
Yes, one.
Universal Soldier.
No.
Time Cop.
No.
Fuck me. It wouldn't be JCVD, would it?
No.
It can't be Friends.
No.
Okay, wait. Whoa. Let's slow this down for a second. Sudden Death.
No.
Double Impact.
Yes.
So how many is that? Is that two?
Double Impact and Kickboxer.
Fucking hell.
I know.
Cyborg? It wouldn't be Cyborg. No. It wouldn't be that terrible one with what's his name?
Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman, yeah.
Oh, Double Team.
Yeah, it's not Double Team.
Yes.
Oh, Double Team's ass.
I know. That's what I'm on about. And it's in his known for.
What's the fourth one?
Nowhere to Run, the prisoner one from same year as Hard Target.
Yeah. I would he's not known for that. He is. I will give you actually the Dennis Rodman one because it's so silly that people do know of it because it's like, I can't believe Jean-Claude Van Damme was in an action movie with Dennis Rodman. And then you got to remember I assume that would have been around 96, 95, 96?
97.
Dennis Rodman was so famous then. Like, the Bulls had just done their second three-peat, and he'd been dating Madonna. He'd just got married, and he was, in his own wedding dress. Like, he was bananas, but he was so fucking famous. So I will give them that. I am not having Nowhere to Run. I would have AWOL ahead of that, or Lionheart. I know that confuses things because it has different names in different countries, but Nowhere to Run is a disgrace. One day we're gonna have to look up how IMDb decides these things.
Yeah, I might.
It's just so strange. Everyone. I reckon if you ask 90% of people, you ask them for four movies, for which like Jean-Claude Van Damme is known, I reckon at least 90% are giving you both Bloodsport and Kickboxer.
Yeah. And then Universal Soldier and
those two. Okay, fair play. Kickboxer was on there, but surely Bloodsport.
I would have thought, yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Right.
Moving
anyway,
on.
hates.
Your hates.
Yeah. So Nat, Yancey Butler as Nat just seemed like a pointless introduction into it all. It just,
she's not great. She doesn't know.
No.
Again, she doesn't know what movie she's in. I'm not sure if it's a combination of the editing, the writing, and all those things. But she has this kind of like bemused look on her face all film. Like maybe she's confused as the rest of us. But yeah, she's not fantastic in this film.
Not enough trust in John Woo.
No,
to give us something that we should have. Look, I enjoyed this film, but like you said, the first half, the first hour, 45 minutes, there's just not enough trust in John Woo to give something.
The problem is this film, and let's be clear, like I really enjoyed this film, especially by the end. I was just completely on board.
Yeah.
But there is that element of like leaving one out there where you're just like, man, this could have been something amazing. Like before, like Hollywood really got hold of him with like, his later films, and there was always like one hint of like, it was never quite the same as his Hong Kong movies. The second half of this movie is as close as we ever got to like his Hong Kong style being moved over to Hollywood. It's just bizarre that the first half is so far removed from that. And it's just like, man, they could have made something truly special with this film, and it just never quite got there.
And finally, Cop putting the weird bundt cake thing with the candle in the drawer.
A birthday cake and just leaving it in the drawer. I was just like, dude, you're going to burn this place down.
You're the best.
Top. You're the one and only detective in this town. No wonder it's fucking rife with crime.
She put it on top of a pile of paper as well.
So dumb. All right. In terms of my hates, number one, the melodrama in the first half, like I said earlier, it's truly Days of Lives stuff. It's Days of Our Lives. Sorry, I do apologize. Some of the direction is poor. When people aren't shooting each other, the direction just simply isn't great. It's fantastic when they're fighting, but the rest of the film, it has that kind of straight to DVD, straight to VHS, whatever you want to call it, style about it. This might actually be linked to the direction, but the writing and some of the acting is just basically ass. And I just want to sneak in a fourth one. Paul dying. Not Paul, Poe. I really thought him surviving was going to be his shtick. Because it felt like people kept going up to him, and it was like the idea was like, oh, you're going to die now, but he kept somehow surviving, and he was this sniveling toad, and maybe he would kind of like get killed right at the end. But for him to kind of like almost playing it for laughs, I know they cut off some of his ear with a pair of scissors, which isn't exactly hilarious, but it felt like they were to an extent playing Poe for laughs.
Yeah.
But for then, like halfway through the movie, for him to get his brains blown out, and that could almost be a sign of like how like that movie ended and the other movie started, because that led directly into the shootout in the street. He has this gruesome fucking death scene where he blows his head off on the shotgun, and then 2 minutes later, Jean-Claude Van Damme is standing on a bike for absolutely no reason. Such a weird film.
Broad daylight, and it was completely empty.
So empty. But they already proved later on the stuff with is it Emil? Is that his name? The homeless guy? Or Elijah?
Oh, not Emil, no.
Elijah.
Roper.
Oh, was his first name Elijah? I think I got that on IMDb. I might be making that up. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We know who we're talking about. I think it's Elijah. There are a lot of people in that sequence. Nobody gives a fuck. It's a free-for-all in New Orleans, apparently. But hey ho.
Cool. So, alternate titles then. So, Argentina.
Thanks for stepping. I was just choking.
That's right. I saw you coughing. Argentina. Hard Target. Operation Hunt.
I mean, it might have actually been a bit more helpful for me going into this film. I'm like, oh, they're doing a hunt. I get it.
Oh, you like Belgium's then? Belgium, Manhunt.
Belgium knows. Wait, isn't there already a Manhunt movie?
Manhunter. Was it Manhunter?
Yeah. Manhunter, yeah.
Anyway. Bulgaria, Difficult Target.
Difficult Target. Not Hard Target, just difficult.
It's difficult, yeah.
Wait. So he's really hard to kill. He's difficult to kill. But you'll get him. It'll just be a little bit tricky, that's all.
Czech Republic, Live Target.
I love the idea that Difficult Target, if it was like a video game, he'd be like the third boss. He's like, he's a bit tricky, but you'll get through him. There's like 6 more bosses afterwards. He's just difficult, but he's not that hard.
He's a 3-star boss. You'll be all right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Czech Republic, Live Target.
It's okay.
Well, it's better than Dead Target, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's got to be live. France, Manhunt.
Yeah, more the same.
Germany, Hard Goals.
No, don't like it.
No. Greece, Difficult Task. So it's
that
not a difficult target anymore. It's just a difficult task.
difficult task. That could be like this movie could be about homework. It's like, what the fuck?
Hungary missed the mark completely. Perfect Destination.
Yeah, they really have missed the mark, haven't they?
Yeah. Although so did Italy, I guess. Ceaseless.
Yeah, you can kind of see what they're going for, but it doesn't work at all.
So Poland now, he's not difficult. It's not a difficult target. It's not a difficult task. He's an elusive target.
It's better than difficult target, elusive target.
Portugal, relentless persecution.
That feels like it could, again, the whole idea, if you were like taking this as like a precursor to Running Man, that feels like, oh, before they really got the title down as well. It's like, we've got the basic concept, but we haven't got a great title for it yet. Once we have that title, that's when it's going to take off. I think we're really going to hit the ground running in Eastern Europe. And then we can make something like the Running Man. We should call it the Running Man, you know?
My next two, they followed your video game idea. So Serbia is the 2-star. It's a tough target. So that's a 2-star boss. Yeah.
Again, it feels too casual. It's like, is he hard to cut? It's a tough target. It's a tough target. You'll get him, but it's tough stuff.
And Taiwan, you've reached the end boss. I think you've reached the ultimate target.
Oh yeah, now we're talking.
Yeah,
that's much better.
That's it. That's it.
Cool. Any facts for this one? I mean, you've already covered a couple, but
yeah, we covered a couple. So I'll just go on for a few more. So John Woo turned down the script for Face Off to direct this instead, as the science fiction side of that movie didn't interest him. He had a change of heart 4 years later when he did choose to direct Face Off.
Well, but a big part of that was they actually changed it, didn't they, for him? Because we've already done Face Off on the podcast, so we did like a whole 96 series. It was the original script for that was much more sci-fi, and it was set in the future. Yeah. And then they just moved it to 1996, and the fact that it just didn't make sense from a technological point of view, again, it didn't matter because all of a sudden you're watching a John Woo movie. But I wouldn't be surprised if he had a big hand in that.
Yeah, the strong chemistry between Arnold Vosloo and Lance Henriksen led one Universal executive to quip that he wished he could have gotten the pair for their own film together.
100% agree.
Yeah,
100% agree. They're so great together.
During the first test screening of the film, John Woo turned to a producer and noted they never did such previews in Hong Kong. The producer asked him how he knew if people liked the movie or not, and Woo responded, "Oh, if they didn't like it, they set the theatre on fire and slashed the seats."
Sounds fantastic. See, sorry, just to go back to your previous fact, because we did last week and we spent so much time talking about the villains, how great would they have been in Cliffhanger? How fucking dope would they have been in Cliffhanger? Like, honestly, immediately just makes that movie better.
All you need is them two as well. You don't need anything else.
No, you don't. You just have those two just on a mountain. Maybe like a little bit of, you could literally get the cast from this. Get all the, the dudes you don't give a shit about who are clearly going to get killed, but keep the emphasis on those two. And Cliffhanger is a better movie.
So I guess the crew knew that they were doing a John Woo-vie because the crew had to construct a bulletproof shield to protect the camera, which was nicknamed the Woo Woo Choo Choo.
Fantastic.
Kurt Russell was considered the star, but the lead role ended up going to Van Damme when Universal Pictures decided that they wanted to be in the Van Damme business. The studio had successfully released his martial arts pick AWOL or Lionheart in 91. And his pictures released between that film and Hard Target had all been strong performers domestically and internationally. So,
as you said, this literally was 100% peak Jean-Claude for sure.
Yeah, but literally, it was like, we don't want Russell. We don't Van Damme.
Never. Yeah, you got to remember, like 92, 93. Kurt Russell wasn't exactly setting the world light as like an action star back then. I feel like, maybe that kind of ship had sailed a little bit. So I totally understand why they would have gone with Jean-Claude in 1992 going into 1993, because he was the biggest star. Like, he totally was then. He was, like I said, he really did walk right up to that kind of like super movie star level. We always talk about from those late 80s to early 90s action heroes, the three that immediately jump out as the big stars are always Bruce Willis, Sylvester Stallone, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then there's the second tier, and you talk about Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, et cetera. The closest any of those came to like breaking into that top tier was 100% Jean-Claude Van Damme, and it was around this time when you're coming off Universal Soldier, which was a massive hit. coming into this, blah, blah, blah. Time Cop was a big hit, but then he kind of shit the bed after that. And a big part of that was like, it wasn't just him. The industry changed, and because he came through a bit later, it meant his time in the sun was somewhat shrunk, because all of a sudden by 96, they've moved on to the likes of Nicolas Cage and all that. Yeah. Even John Woo himself, and they're dealing with like character actors in action movies instead. And suddenly fucking John Travolta's in them and blah, blah, blah. But just a brief period, man, he was truly knocking on the door. And as I say, I think this was around his peak. So I get what they went for.
I get what you're saying, but still, I wouldn't go Kurt Russell. I wouldn't go Van Damme over Russell, but that's just me. Lance Henriksen's pistol is a Thompson Center Contender. It is a single-shot pistol featuring interchangeable barrels of different calibers. It was also used by Philip Chung Fung Kwok in Woo's Hard Boiled. I'm sorry, I'll do that again. Philip Chung Fung Kwok in Woo's Hard Boiled.
Awesome. It's such a cool gun. Such a cool gun.
The ear cutting scene was included by director John Woo as a friendly homage to Reservoir Dogs, which included a trademark Woo Mexican standoff.
Awesome.
And yeah, we'll end it there, to be fair.
Cool.
Because it's just going to go all about director trademarks then. And we know all about his trademarks. We've done them all.
Hope to future. So this is where we ask a question. Remake, sequels, Let It Die, Leave Well Alone. Leave so well alone. Like, I don't want to see another version of this. It's not the premise, it's the time, it's the place, it's the star, it's the director. We can talk a million ways about how back in 1993 they might have made a better version of this. I don't need to see it remade today. I'm all about leaving this well alone as this unique piece of cinema from 1993.
It's interesting because, yes, leave Hard Target alone. It doesn't need to go any further. I enjoyed the sequel, but basically, this premise has been going since 1931 with Most Dangerous Game. It's nearly 100 years old, this premise of hunting man. So on screen, sorry. So you're going to get more. You always will. It's quite an interesting genre that they seem to enjoy. But Hard Target, this one, leave it. No remake. No, just leave it alone.
No. And I mean, John Woo's even, he's remaking his own movies at the moment with The Killer. I'd be amazed if he went back and remade Hard Target. But you're not going to get the Dusty. You're not going to get the Mullet. That's all part of the fun. You're not going to get Uncle Duvet in the same. Like, it's not going to be the same. So yeah, leave well alone. In terms of making a change, I mean, I was going to say bring in a second unit director for anything plot, character, or emotion related, and then just leave root to the action. But it almost sounds like that's what they did. The problem is in the editing room, they they didn't sew the two movies together, so that's why you end up with a bit of a mess. So yeah, I mean, just tidy this movie up, or maybe just give John Woo the reins that he deserved to make the John Woo movie he wanted to. Go back and watch Hard Boiled, go back and watch A Better Tomorrow and go, oh yeah, this is why we got the guy. Just let him make that movie. And it's a shame that it never came to fruition, or at least only for half a movie, as it were.
We're pretty much on the same page there, because it's keep Van Damme out of the editing room.
100%. Yeah. That's really what it is. Yeah. Great chat. In terms of video games, we've already covered this. There criminally was no game for Hard Target, but the obvious and only answer is you get the Midway team of Chicago and Ty Killer and Seaman back together to make a follow-up to the hugely underrated Stranglehold for the 360 and PS3. Criminally, you can't play that on backwards compatibility. So if you want to play Stranglehold now, you've got to dig out your old ass Xbox 360 and a copy of Stranglehold to play it, which is such a shame. It's basically just a Max Payne ripoff, but starring Chow Yun-Fat and somewhat directed by John Woo as well. And it's such a cool game. And it's exactly what I think it is. It's just you dive over things in slow motion, you shoot people. But it looked amazing, it played amazingly, and you're just like, man, just make a Hard Target version of that with Jean-Claude and Uncle Duvet. I'm totally on board for it.
Yeah. I think it looked great in the Bayou and stuff like that. And you had in, like I said, in the Mardi Gras graveyard and everything. I think it looked fantastic. So
yeah, it was always though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's basically Stranglehold 2 Hard Target. That's the answer to this. I wouldn't even mind, because it wouldn't make any sense. But you could just bring back Chow Yun-Fat as a playable character in it, despite the fact that it's set in the Bayou and it's got Chance in there. And so it's like, it doesn't make any sense. Who gives a fuck? It's a video game based on a bonkers movie. In terms of ratings and recommendations, for me, despite the mess of the first half, I had so much fun watching this film. So it's a 4 for me, and it's a yes for me, with the warning that it takes a while to get going. I will actively be telling people to watch this, with the full explanation that I can't believe I didn't watch it growing up. I think the second half is legitimately exceptional. Like I said, we've already mentioned all the problems with this film, but I still think maybe that's my heart speaking over my head, but I'm going to go with 4 and yes.
Well, we seem to be on the. I think the last couple you've been 4 and I've been 3, and there's no change
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
I love this film,
Mhm.
but it's a 3.
I totally get.
Yeah,
I think maybe if I'd seen this a bunch of times when I was younger, I think I might have felt the same way. I think I'm reviewing this based off my experience. The whole thing of like not really knowing much about it, that kind of disappointment from the first, 30, 40 minutes, and the way it turned around. And by the end, I was just so fucking on. Like by the end of the film, I'm like, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. And then I had to remember, it's like, now the first half was ass. But
And
it's so much fun. Like when I look back at the experience as a whole, it was a 4-star experience. But let's be clear, it is a 3-star movie. So I'm probably going
it is. As I've watched her a few times, I remember the beginning being a bit boring. You don't really need the Nat stuff. She's never really been in. I've never really been interested in that side of it. It's when it gets to the end, when it gets to the hunt, to the bayou, to Uncle Duvet, and that's when I have the most fun with it. And that is the 3-star film for me. So it's 3-star, and yes, I do recommend it. When it comes to Van Damme films, it's probably one of my top 5. I would say you need to watch. So
it's gone into my top 5. And like I said, with John Woo, outside of his Hong Kong cinema, I've run about his West. Like, don't get me wrong, after you get past like Face Off, and certainly the fact that it's kind of, I'd probably sneak this above Broken Arrow because I think it's just more fun.
Yeah.
And I like Broken Arrow, but this is maybe my second favorite John Woo, like Western John Woo movie. It's just jumped straight up there. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, 4 and yes for me. So that has been 1993's Hard Target. It's my choice for next week. We are jumping a few years ahead to 1995.
Okay.
The director, I'm not sure how much this is going to help, is Ian Softly, a British director.
No, never heard of him. It's interesting because you gave me choice a couple of weeks back of 93.
I've pushed that one back. I pushed that
93 or 96. So we're not doing a 96
We're
one.
not doing that. We are doing the 96 one, but we're not doing it yet.
Okay. So Ian Softly
is the director, yes.
Yeah, I've never heard of the guy.
You'll probably get it from this. The star is Johnny Lee Miller.
Hack the Planet.
Yeah, Hack the Planet. It's all trash. Hack the Planet. Yeah, we're doing hackers. Again, I was thinking about doing this, and I was just like, Bethan all of a sudden said she fancied watching it because she'd never seen it before. And then my brother randomly sent me a message saying, oh, dude, you should do Hackers. And I'd literally just watched it. So it's just meant to be. So a movie of its time, I think it's fair to say, but one which is arguably aged pretty well simply because it was always dumb as fuck. This film is really silly.
It's going to be one having to look through the old technology where they're meant to be the best hackers in the world. But that's what you do with like Sneakers. Sneakers is a great film if you look past the technology of that day. So,
but it almost comes out with a lot of these films, and you get it like with war games and stuff like that. You tend to be more hypercritical of them when they came out. To be like, oh, that's silly, blah blah blah, and then maybe a few years after it starts feeling old fashioned. But then they come back around and they become charming. It's like the technology is so old-fashioned now that even though like it almost doesn't matter if the stuff makes sense. And Hackers is a weird combination of being true to like the scene, and then a lot of the stuff is also totally made up. And I think all that ended up really doing was upsetting people who were genuinely into computers at the time, because they could see them having like one foot in the waters and then just one foot of God knows fucking where. But going back and watching it now, you're like, who gives a fuck? And you can just enjoy it as such a 1995 movie.
The thing that's always made me laugh about this film is when you go into the hacking world.
Oh, yeah.
that is absolutely ridiculous. Like the animation, and I know they've got to do it on screen, so we're just not watching a guy sweat over his keyboard. Do you know? You've got to see something. So I get it, but oh my god,
but the other thing
it's going to be an interesting watch. To be fair, I can't wait to
get it. With a lot of these computer films, is like you got to remember, like even in 1995, most people didn't have a computer. I didn't have a computer, and you had to explain it to people in a visual medium in a way that they can understand. Like you said, one part is trying to make people clickety clacky on keyboards exciting, but you also had to kind of visually tell people like, well, this is what computers can do, and without kind of, it was either that or just having endless streams of exposition. Because people would be like, well, I don't really know how computers work. I'm not sure if I do today, but people are a lot more au fait with technology than they were back in 95 and certainly the 80s and stuff. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting experience going back to. It's got an amazing cast.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Cast is great. I can't wait to hear when they sell their technology. Though I know you're saying look past it, but when they go in, oh, this is the best thing ever. It's got this RAM, like 1 megabyte of RAM.
It's got like 7,000 colors, bro. I mean, I'm not sure if that's going to age as badly as some of the fashion in this film. But one thing I do remember is like the soundtrack was always amazing. The cast was really fun. And despite it being really stupid, and Fisher Stevens, it is Fisher Stevens, isn't it?
Fisher
Given
Stevens,
one of the biggest performances of all time.
Randomly, Penn. The fuck is Penn or Teller,
Penn
whichever
from
one he is.
No, it's Penn. Yeah, Penn from Penn
yeah.
and Teller.
Penn Jillette, yeah. I think I already know your quote as well.
There are so many to choose from. There are so many.
It's me. It's Phantom Freak.
Well, I can't use that now. You've already used it. But yeah, anyway, we're just talking about the fucking movie now. Next week we're doing 1995's Hackers. So do join us for that. Do you have anything else to add before we wrap this up?
No, mate, we'll wrap it up today and just say thanks for listening as always. And if you want to drop us a message, like I said, you can send us an actual message now from your podcast listener of choice, or you can approach us on the socials and let us know what you think of the podcast. Let us know if there's any films you want us to cover, or what you thought, if we've missed anything on any of the previous episodes.
Okay, sounds good. I've been Liam. He's been Rob, and you have been listening to Hey You Guys podcast. Cheers, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Hey, you guys!